Hello and welcome to the video. In this video we're taking a look at this model here. This is the ViFly X150. Now I looked at another model from ViFly in the middle of last year that was a little bulletproof tank that was actually very good, but there was a couple of things that I'd have liked to see change on it. And that was things like the camera and some ability to change power settings too. But ViFly looked like they've been listening to everybody and they brought out this new version here, the X150. Now as you can see, this is a radically different design. It's an X frame with a little tower in the middle and an FPV transmitter and everything built in. But the really impressive thing on here is they've actually managed to squeeze on 4-inch props. And if you're careful with your battery size, as we'll see in a minute, you can squeak this under the 250 gram limit. So if you're in those parts of the world where 250 grams is the legal limit that you can play with before you start getting into all kinds of complicated trouble, then this is definitely worth a look. So in this video, what I'm going to do is show you how it comes in the box, talk through some of the tips and tricks, show you how it's set up in beta flight, because the tuning has had a little bit of playing with here, and I'll show you some FPV footage and talk about it at the end. So first of all, let's go through the specs. So again, this is a 150mm frame, X-type, nice thick carbon fiber with 4-inch propellers. So that's why it's got that tower design in the middle to give maximum clearance for 4-inch props. The carbon fibre on the arms is 5mm thick and about 6mm wide, and touch wood, so far even with my crashes I haven't managed to break anything yet, so it does seem pretty solid. The model itself is around the 174 gram mark, so if you're careful with a battery you can get this flying weight under the 250 gram mark, although the one I'm flying here is with an 853S pack and it's just over, but we'll look at that in a second. They have improved the camera dramatically on this model. In fact, it's a little foxier camera. It's one of the ones that we've already looked at on the channel, and the Arrow Micro CCD camera is a very nice performer, and surprise it works in exactly the same way here. About 2.1mm lens, so roughly what, 140-150 degree field of view, which is very nice for general FPV. F4 based flight controller, 1406 brushless motors with 4 BL-HELIS 20A ESCs, all in the central stack underneath that flight controller. So let me show you how this thing comes in the box. The box itself is pretty big, and that's because it comes with the props already installed, which is great if you are new to quadcopters, because I'm guessing you're buying something like this because you don't want to build one yourself. And installing the props is one less thing that you have to do. The manual is pretty good. It's written for both bind and fly and ready to fly models. Look in a second. Get a couple of tools for the prop nuts, Allen keys, some additional dual foam and a couple of spare screws. You get a spare set of props. Mine came with blue props on it, and the yellow ones are the spares, and then the quad just sits underneath. So the big thing you'll have noticed here is that there isn't a battery. So you are going to have to find your own battery. It'll support both 3S and 4S batteries. But to be honest, I've been doing most of my flying on 3S, because even at 3S, it's got quite a little bit of grunt. So in the manual, you can see that it is designed to come also as a bind and fly version. So if you don't have a radio, you can get the one with the radio, and that'll make it pretty easy to set up. And then it goes through all the configuration and setting pieces for how you get this ready to fly. Mine came with a real FR Sky receiver on it to bind to my Taranis radio, which is really good. So setup was a piece of cake. The only thing to be aware of is watch the bands and frequencies. The band that I tend to fly on, Fat Sharp 1, is actually band B1 here on this model. So just be careful of that. Might be worthwhile just keeping this around. So the way this is put together is very nice, and there is loads of room for a battery. Now again, we're using XT30 connectors on here. All of my batteries at the moment seem to be XT60. I'm going to still fly it with this battery here, which is an 850 milliamp 3S pack, and that fits beautifully underneath. And again, it's got that little battery protector in this form of a carbon fiber plate, and that plate also has little foam legs on, so when you've got the battery all strapped up, it sits nice level with the props out of the way of the grass. So let's plug this into a beta flight and just have a look at how it's actually configured. It doesn't power the receiver when you plug the flight controller into beta flight, so to bind it you are going to have to plug the main power in. But as we'll see in a second, it looks like ViFly have actually tested this thing before it left the factory. So here is the ViFly configuration, and again you can see in the black box there is some stuff. So this flight controller has been armed. I like to see that. It means that somebody's done a bit of testing before they sent it in the post. Standard port setting, nothing particular exciting in there. Set for D-shot. Motor stop isn't turned on. 8 kilohertz gyro frequency. And then the only other things turned on at the bottom, OSD, anti-gravity's turned on too. And the rest of it is a pretty standard configuration, so nothing out of the ordinary so far. Click on PID tuning. PID tuning is a little unusual. Now, talking to ViFly, they've actually had this in the hands of quite a few pilots out in China that have tweaked and tuned it. And you'll see how it flies in a minute. And although some of the numbers, when I first looked at this, I thought this looks a bit weird because I expected the pitch and roll rates to be quite similar. It does actually fly very well. So I'm guessing somebody who knows what they're doing has had their hands on it. The modes by default was set up like this. So low auxiliary 1 was angle, mid auxiliary 1 was horizon. So I've just tweaked it so that I've got an arming switch, and this little model also has a buzzer on it too, which is fantastic because that buzzer is very handy because, again, with this being a smaller model, if it lands in anything but short grass, it just kind of disappears from view. Last thing to set up then is just see what version we're running. If I can type. So pretty current version as well. So props to ViFly for shipping this thing with a nice up-to-date version of Betaflight. Right, enough of that. Let me just show you what this thing actually flies like. So here I am flying on a pretty bright morning. There's actually been some snow overnight, so you'll see some of the patches on the grass. There's a little bit of wind around, but not enough to stop me from having a little fly. The on-screen display is set up by default. The RSSI is all configured as part of the on-screen display as well. So it took me all about 2 seconds to get the OSD set up the way I like it. Now you can see here the Foxeer camera is doing what the Foxeer Mini does. It works very well, and we're getting a nice bright situation here. So we're not going to give the wide dynamic range a test. A little bit of prop in the bottom, hovering at about minus 44% throttle. So 3S, about a quarter throttle, it's hovering beautifully. And it's very, very smooth to fly. One of the things is it's really small, but if you blip that throttle, then you get an awful lot of height or very, very quickly. And that is on 3S. This is a 3S pack for this particular example. And on 4S, it's an absolute little beastie. Now, one of the interesting things I'm noticing as I'm flying around here is that I actually forgot it was a mini quad. Now, normally you find that you sacrifice a couple of things when you're flying a smaller quadcopter, but this feels absolutely like a 5-inch quad model. Not only a 5-inch quad, but a pretty well set up 5-inch quad running 5-inch props. Now that's pretty amazing considering the size of this thing and the fact you can get it all up flying weight of less than 250 grams. Overall flight time on that 850 3S battery is just under 6 minutes if I don't fly like a complete lunatic, but about just under 5 minutes if you're giving it an awful lot of throttle. But as you can see here, this just looks like a standard 5-inch quadcopter whizzing around. You wouldn't think this was footage from such a small quadcopter. And those setups and rates and the way it's responding is pretty good too. It could potentially be a fraction crisper, and the rolls for me could be a fraction faster, but that's pretty well set up straight out of the box. So in summary, what do I think? Well, I am genuinely impressed. I quite like the other model that we looked at from ViFly. I know quite a few viewers were quite sniffy about the fact that it was built like a tank, but for some pilots, they're not interested in racing. They just want a model that's going to take all the knocks and continue to fly. It looks like since that came out, ViFly have obviously been very busy because this X150 has an awful lot of improvements. The Foxeer camera works really well. The modern specs, an F4 flight controller, running a really modern version of Betaflight. On-screen display works great. Those fab 4-inch props, a real FR Sky receiver, just means that it kind of does what it says on the tin. The FPV transmitter is variable power from 25 to 200 to I think 600 milliwatts is the top setting. So that again means that you can set it to 25 milliwatts and it's going to be legal. 3 and 4S capable, If you put it on 4S, this is an absolute beast. I'm quite happy on it with 3S. It can get you into and out of trouble more than easily enough on a 3S 850 mAh battery. Despite its size, it's nice and quiet as well. So again, you could fly this in a park style environment where bigger quadcopters might attract unwanted attention. The lights are very nice. There's little bright white lights at the front, and there's lots of lights at the back. The display shows you the battery voltage, it shows you the band that you're using, and you also use it to select the power. The power settings, you just press and hold the band change button on the side of the quadcopter for more than 3 seconds, takes you into the settings, and you have power settings 1, 2 and 3 that correspond to 25, 200, 600 milliwatts. A couple of considerations though. First of all, there is no battery in the box. It's XT30 connector, so you're definitely going to have to get yourself a couple of batteries. Because it's using those nice big 4-inch props, you're getting really nice fly times. Because of the efficiency of using 4-inch props on such a small model, you are getting some pretty efficient flying. So the fact you're getting about 6 minutes from an 850 pack, you can have 2 or 3 of those, you're going to get a nice time at the field having a goof around. One of the things I did notice is the supplied antenna is the same as the R130 and it's quite heavy. My recommendation would be put that back in the box and get yourself a nice little pagoda antenna or a little stubby antenna, because you can save an awful lot of weight by swapping that heavy antenna out with that big plastic enclosure for something that's an awful lot lighter. There obviously isn't a place to mount an action camera, and it is relatively expensive for what it is, but this is the first quadcopter in this class, particularly with 4-inch props, that I've flown, and after a couple of minutes flying, completely forgot about the fact it was a much smaller quad and just flown it like a standard 5-inch model. So if you're looking for a quadcopter that you just want to buy into your radio, get out there and do some flying that's going to fly really well, fly like a 5-inch quad actually, with a pretty decent tune on it, and you have that kind of money, then this is definitely worth a look. If you found that video useful or like the content, then please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to go the extra step, you can become a Patreon of the Painless 360 channel and help provide support for what I do here. All the videos created here are put into playlists, so if you're interested in a particular topic, have a look at the playlist, and they all are organised in there to make them easier to use. If you're not sure if there's a video for your particular problem or topic you want to know more about, then add Painless 360 to the Google search term that you're interested in, and that should find the video, article or content about the particular thing that you're interested in having a look at.